The headline: an eye-opening visit to the little house of my childhood. I still remember the first line of Laura Ingalls Wilder's book, the one that had my 6-year-old brain scrambling. I was lying in my bedroom in a Canadian suburb, bored and curious, and I read that sentence. Little Laura said, "Now is now. It can never be a long time ago." It made me feel that someday my life might become part of an old story, that the past could be a living thing. Wilder's original series of 8 books came out in the 1930s and 40s, right in the middle of the Great Depression. The country was hungry for stories of resilience, hope, and simple, hard-won adventure. The books, set in the 1870s and 80s in the American Midwest, were a kind of narrative refuge. They told of the Ingalls family moving from Wisconsin to Kansas, to Minnesota, and finally to the Dakota Territory, fighting the brutal winters and the hardships of homesteading. That context matters. The same stories were turned into a television series in 1974. Michael Landon and Melissa Gilbert played Laura and Pa. That show aired in the wake of Vietnam Anwar Watergate, and it celebrated heartwarming family values. Ronald Reagan himself joked that it was his favorite TV program. Fast forward to today, and Netflix has chosen to reboot Little House. Buried in its new rendition are the same saccharine highs, but it's not the same as Wilder's original. Nor is it the myth-making version that Landon made. It tries to read the story through someone who sees America as a place of pain, violence, and reparative history. For me, as a child, Laura was proof that a girl could both be bound by rules and wildly adventurous. I could be petty and jealous and brave. I could hate wearing a bonnet, and yet I could also spend hours describing women, how they readied for a dance. The juxtaposition of fear and freedom, of faith and despair, was captured in every small, build cozy house, the warmth of a hearth, and the surviving love. If you've never lived in Aquitarian Little House yourself, you can't imagine how it felt to step inside that humble cabin, see the wooden floorboards and the crude, but sturdy, fireplace. The books and the shows capture the stages of a 19th century frontier life where every tool, every meal built a strong relationship between the people. The perspective has shifted across the decades. In the 1930s, it was about hope fiction that taught the nation the Go West ideal. In the 1970s, it was a mini anthem for the era's nostalgic housewarming. In the 2020s, the reboot is almost political, with no apologies for the violence of the past. The writer is on the other side of a violent history between the 19th and the 21st, bridging us across time. You may remember the first book title, Number Little House in the Big Woods. That was launched just before the Dust Bowl, just when America's conscience was being weighed. The series follows Laura as she becomes a teacher in a town in Oregon, meets her future husband Almanzo, and lives a life that is both symbolic of the frontier and the feminist feeling. It's rare for a novelist to write such a world from a female perspective, especially in an age when men dominated the national narrative. She is an old woman in her 60s writing about a girl's story. She has the right to bring this story to this age, especially because it is an American odyssey wrapped in a fairy tale that looked out to 10,000 or so readers. Thank you for listening. If you've loved this recap and want to hear more stories about the frontier and magical books that still touch lives, subscribe and stay tuned. I'll be here again next week, talking about next episode. Stay curious, keep reading.